Okay, can you give me any examples?
Um, you know, well, I guess there are three strains called the red, the black, and the white, and they're used to enhance each other, and they're actually, I mean, part of the effort happening on the planet again is to make like a Superman. That wasn't just Nietzsche talking. I mean, he tapped into that, but on an occult level, what they're doing is they're taking different strands of DNA that show up in different races. For example, the reds would be the more obvious sort of redheads or strawberry blondes that have a certain Celtic background, so on, would be merged with what's called a black, which would be I'm a black. It's a sort of another Illuminati strain, and I'm sure I'm probably a mixture, but of a Celtic and maybe German and other groups, but you're sort of the blondes are called blacks. I mean, these are occult sort of words for different genetic strains, I guess you might say. And when you put them together, when you merge them together and create a child, then the child has abilities from both sides of the equation, and there are various abilities that are unique to each genetic strain that when put together can make you doubly sort of have twice as much abilities in all areas. And so obviously they're sort of in the process of doing that all the time.
So is there a sort of a destiny for man, or are they I'm not sure, that question just kind of disappeared right out of my mind as I was thinking about it. But what ultimately are they trying to achieve, I guess, the Illuminati, with this developing, like, what do they see as a Superman, so like you said?
Well, I mean, again, that is also a bit open to interpretation, and also I think there's some ET deception going on along those lines. But if you talk about the Illuminati who are human and what they think they're involved in versus what the ETs that they work with are involved, know they are involved in, so to speak. Yeah, it's to create an ultimate being that's a composite of many races with all the different traits and abilities. Like, just go watch a superhuman, any of the movies in which you see kids or people portraying Superman-like characters. I mean, the idea being you would have, ultimate psychic ability, ability to teleport and move objects, and I mean, all of these abilities would be obviously put into the being. Now, there's another sort of strain of this which involves robotics, and I guess you might even call it bio-robotics. I don't know if that's a term, but in other words, there's a group that is more interested in not doing it on the natural side through genetics only, but putting together with a robotics and that's part of what the Heather material is all about, and why that material is so important and why I've made such a big deal about it, simply because we got secret witness testimony about that kind of thing. Okay, but not in that, and not in the amount of specifics that particular material drills down to in sort of a story fashion. And so that when the Heather material surfaced, it was only talking about things that we had already been told really were happening behind the scenes, and that we were also told if we talked about it, that was one of the times when we were told we could be killed. In other words, that it was so secret and so important that that they didn't want the word out there. And so whenever I'm told not to talk about something, I like to talk about it as soon as possible, simply because that's the kind of person I am. That's the mission I'm on. I want people to understand and to know what the truth is out there. And so, yeah, robotics is a big part of that whole drive to make us superhuman.
Okay. And you say us, but are they really, they're focusing on themselves more, right? And we're kind of what they experiment on?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Obviously they're going to, the whole thing is an experiment. I mean, humanity is an experiment. You could see it that way. And the various strains of humanity are an experiment. In fact, this whole planet is an experiment. It always has been, in a sense. And so whenever you experiment, there's a lot of destruction, there's a lot of creation, and obviously the powers that be will take control on certain levels until a being has complete sense of their own sovereignty. And that's what we're trying to foster here. We're trying to get people to understand what is being done to them, what's being done behind the scenes on the one hand, and then the other hand, start to recognize their own power as spiritual beings, and that ultimately that they are eternal beings, and that therefore they truly have the power in the final analysis to take back their sovereignty. And so that is in essence what the game is here, and that's what we're involved in.
Mm-hmm. And that I just thought of a question a minute ago. Why haven't you been killed?
Well, then you have to get into the fact that we have huge amounts. Sorry, my phone's.
It's okay.
Here. The fact that we have not only what we call white hats in the government, in the secret government, who want the word out. In other words, there are a lot of aspects to that you could think about. One of the things is that we act as a release valve, and that means that in any given system, you must have a anti-system, if you will, that will allow the energy that builds up in resistance to whatever idea it is to have voice, to create itself, so that you can then either, cut it off at the head, so to speak, or take that and allow it to morph into something that you want to use. And so Camelot is part of that process. In other words, as Gurdjieff said, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. In a sense, we're the Camelot posits itself, in a sense, as the antithesis. However, to the New World Order. However, in the process, if you get away from the sort of world of polarity and opposites, you can rise above that. And so some of the things that we do in Camelot, or at least that I do, is kind of concentrated on overcoming that notion of polarity, such that we cannot be overcome or taken over by the opposite side, in essence, the Illuminati. And so they're operating similar to that. In other words, for their own livelihood and to stay alive, they also have to honor that law of 3D, I guess, in essence. So they have to play the game. So that's why they let you know, they use someone like us to let you know. I'm getting a phone call here in the background, but just hopefully, I guess it's not interfering. No. To actually allow what's going to happen materialize. Let it materialize to such an extent that it can either, if it's opposition, be eliminated, and then new opposition will arise. And again, they let it grow to a certain point, and then they cut it off at the neck. Now,